After my divorce, I got half my fortune back. I celebrated with a lavish birthday party. Then I caught my daughter-in-law slipping something into my drink. Calmly, I switched our glasses when she turned away. Within 5 minutes, she began to convulse on my marble floor. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button. Let me back up and tell you how a perfectly civilized birthday party turned into something out of a crime thriller. 6 months ago, when I finally divorced Robert after 28 years of marriage, I thought the hardest part was behind me. Shows you how naive a 58-year-old woman can be, even one who supposedly has some life experience. The settlement was fair. I kept the Malibu house, half the investment portfolio, and my sanity. Robert got the other half of the money, his precious yacht, and whatever dignity he had left after I caught him with his secretary again. The third time, actually. But who's counting? My son Marcus had taken the divorce harder than expected. "Mom, couldn't you have worked things out?" He'd asked during one of our awkward coffee meetings. Sweet boy, still believing his father was the man he pretended to be in public rather than the cheating, entitled narcissist I'd lived with for nearly 3 decades. Marcus had married Sophia 2 years ago, and I tried my best to welcome her into the family. She was young, 28 to his 35, with that glossy blonde hair and practice smile that made me think of a beauty pageant contestant. Beautiful girl certainly, but there was something about the way she watched people, calculated things that reminded me of a cat sizing up a mouse. But I pushed those thoughts aside. After all, she made Marcus happy. And after everything our family had been through, happiness seemed worth celebrating. Which brings me to last Tuesday night, my 58th birthday, and I decided to throw myself a proper party. Not some sad, quiet dinner for 2, but a real celebration with champagne, catered food, and enough flowers to stock a florist shop. If I was going to start this new chapter of my life, I was going to do it in style. The guest list was small but significant. My best friend Jennifer, a few neighbors, my brother Tom and his wife, and of course Marcus and Sophia. Even my ex-sister-in-law came, bless her. Robert thankfully was not invited. Some wounds need more than 6 months to heal. Everything was perfect. The caterers had outdone themselves. The champagne was flowing, and I was actually enjoying myself for the first time in months. I felt beautiful in my new black dress, the one I'd bought specifically because Robert always said black washed me out. Turns out he was wrong about that too. Around 9 o'clock, I stepped out onto the terrace to get some air. The view from my Malibu house never got old, the Pacific stretching endlessly under a canopy of stars. I could hear laughter drifting from inside, the gentle clink of glasses, the low murmur of conversation. This was my life now. My choice, my home, my future. When I came back inside, Sophia was standing near the bar where I'd left my champagne glass. Nothing unusual about that. She'd been helping serve drinks all evening, playing the perfect daughter-in-law, but something about her posture caught my attention. She was turned slightly away from the room, her body shielding whatever she was doing from view. I paused in the doorway watching. She glanced quickly around the room, then dropped something small into my glass. It dissolved instantly, leaving no trace except for the briefest shimmer on the surface of the champagne. For a moment, I couldn't process what I'd seen. Surely I was mistaken. Surely my own daughter-in-law hadn't just put something in my drink. But even as my mind struggled to find an innocent explanation, my body knew better. My heart started pounding and my mouth went dry. Sophia turned around with that beautiful smile firmly in place, picked up my glass and started walking toward me. "Diana, there you are. I was just bringing you your drink." I smiled back, matching her innocent expression with one of my own. "How thoughtful of you, sweetheart." She handed me the glass and I took it with steady hands. "Thank you." But instead of drinking, I waited. When she turned to greet Jennifer, who was approaching with a story about her latest online dating disaster, I smoothly switched my glass with Sophia's. Hers was sitting on the side table, identical, except for whatever she'd added to mine. The switch took maybe 3 seconds. Simple, clean, unnoticed. 5 minutes later, as Jennifer was describing her date's unfortunate habit of talking exclusively about his mother, Sophia suddenly grabbed the back of a chair. Her face had gone pale and she was blinking rapidly. "Sophia." Marcus was immediately at her side. "Are you okay?" "I feel a little dizzy," she said. But her voice was wrong somehow. Thick, slurred. Then her legs gave out. She hit my marble floor hard, her body immediately going into convulsions that made everyone in the room freeze in horror. That's when I realized my sweet daughter-in-law had just tried to poison me. While everyone else was screaming and calling 911, I was doing some very quick thinking. The ambulance arrived within minutes. One advantage of living in an affluent neighborhood. And the paramedics took one look at Sophia's symptoms and immediately suspected poisoning. "What did she eat or drink tonight?" one of them asked Marcus, who was white as a sheet and holding Sophia's limp hand. "Just champagne and some appetizers," he stammered. "Same as everyone else." But it hadn't been the same as everyone else, had it? I kept my mouth shut and watched them load my unconscious daughter-in-law into the ambulance. Marcus climbed in beside her, shooting me an apologetic look. "I'm sorry, Mom. I have to." "Of course you do," I assured him. "Go. Keep me posted." After they left, I ushered my remaining guests out with promises to update them as soon as I heard anything. Jennifer lingered as I knew she would. "That was terrifying," she said, helping me collect champagne glasses. "What do you think happened? Food poisoning, maybe?" I suggested, though we both knew that didn't explain the convulsions. Jennifer paused, holding Sophia's glass, the one that had originally been mine. "Diana, this is going to sound crazy, but did you notice anything strange about Sophia tonight?" I met her eyes. Jennifer had been my best friend since college. She knew me well enough to read between the lines. "What kind of strange?" "I don't know. She seemed nervous, jumpy, and she was watching you a lot." "Was she?" I tried to sound surprised, but my mind was racing. If Jennifer had noticed something, maybe I wasn't being paranoid after all. We finished cleaning in relative silence, but I could feel Jennifer's worried glances. After she left, I sat alone in my living room, staring at the spot where Sophia had collapsed. The smart thing would be to call the police right now and tell them what I'd seen. But what had I actually seen? A young woman putting something in a drink that might have been sugar or aspirin or any number of harmless things. Yes, she'd collapsed afterward, but that could be a coincidence. Except my gut told me it wasn't. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Doctors say she was definitely poisoned. They're running tests to figure out what kind. Police want to interview everyone who was at the party." Poisoned. So I hadn't imagined it. I typed back, "How horrible. Is she going to be okay?" "They think so. She's conscious now but doesn't remember much from tonight." "How convenient." Another text came through. "Another mom. The police want to talk to you tomorrow morning. Detective Williams, I told them you'd cooperate fully." Of course I replied. Whatever they need, but after I hit send, I sat back and really thought about what I was facing. If Sophia had indeed tried to poison me, she wouldn't just give up because her first attempt failed. She'd try again, probably more carefully next time. And now she knew I might be suspicious. After all, I was the one who'd been standing nearest to her when she collapsed. The question was, why? Why would my daughter-in-law want me dead? I went to my home office and pulled out my financial records. Robert and I had split everything 50-50, but 50% of our assets was still a considerable sum. If something happened to me, my will left everything to Marcus. And if something happened to Marcus, well, it would go to his wife. But surely that was too far-fetched. Surely no one would commit murder for money they might inherit someday. Except people had done it before many times. I spent the next hour going through old photos on my phone, looking at pictures of Marcus and Sophia's wedding, family gatherings, holiday celebrations. In every single photo, she was smiling, that perfect smile, playing the devoted wife and daughter-in-law. But now that I knew what to look for, I could see something else in her eyes. Something calculating and cold. Around 2 a.m. I finally went to bed. But sleep was impossible. Every sound made me jump. What if she came back? What if this was just the beginning of a more elaborate plan? The next morning, Detective Williams arrived right on schedule. He was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "Mrs. Morrison, I know this must be traumatic for your family," he began, "but we need to figure out how your daughter-in-law ingested what appears to be a significant amount of antifreeze." Antifreeze? My blood ran cold. "That wasn't something you accidentally consumed." "Antifreeze?" I repeated. "Are you sure?" The hospital confirmed it. The question is how it got into her system. We're testing everything from the party, food, drinks, even the flowers in case she had some kind of allergic reaction. I took a deep breath. It was time to make a decision that would change everything. Detective Williams, I said slowly. There's something I need to tell you. Detective Williams set down his coffee cup and leaned forward when I told him what I'd witnessed. His expression shifted from polite interest to sharp attention as I described seeing Sophia drop something into my drink. You're certain about what you saw? He asked. Absolutely certain. I walked him through it step by step. Sophia's furtive glances, the way she positioned her body to block her actions, the quick dissolving motion, and you switched the glasses without her knowledge. Yes, she handed me what she thought was my original glass, but it was actually hers. Detective Williams was quiet for a long moment, processing. Mrs. Morrison, if what you're telling me is accurate, your daughter-in-law attempted to murder you. Hearing it said out loud made my chest tighten. That's what I'm afraid of. The question is why? Do you have any idea what her motive might be? I gestured toward my financial documents spread across the coffee table. Money, I assume. My divorce settlement was quite substantial. He reviewed the papers with a cop's trained eye. This is significant wealth. Who inherits if something happens to you? Marcus, my son, and if something happened to both of us, I let the implication hang in the air. His wife would inherit everything. Detective Williams made a note. Mrs. Morrison, I need to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Has your relationship with Sophia been strained lately? Any arguments, disagreements, anything that might have triggered this? I considered the question. Nothing dramatic. We've always been polite to each other, but I wouldn't say we were particularly close. She's quite a bit younger than Marcus, and sometimes I got the impression she found family gatherings tedious. What about your ex-husband? How does Sophia get along with him? Something cold settled in my stomach. I am not sure. Robert and I don't exactly compare notes these days. Why? Just trying to understand the family dynamics, but his expression suggested there was more to the question than he was letting on. After Detective Williams left, promising to be in touch soon, I found myself pacing my house like a caged animal. The walls that had felt like sanctuary yesterday now felt like a target. If Sophia had tried once, she'd try again, and next time she might not make the mistake of letting me see her do it. I called Jennifer. Can you come over? I need to talk to someone I trust. She arrived within an hour, took one look at my face, and immediately went to make tea. Jennifer had always been practical in crisis situations. It's why we've been friends for 35 years. Tell me everything, she said, settling into the chair across from me. So I did. I told her about the poisoning attempt, about my conversation with the detective, about my growing suspicion that my daughter-in-law was trying to kill me for money. Jennifer listened without interruption, her expression growing more troubled with each detail. Diana, she said finally, you need to be very careful here. If you're right about this, you're dealing with someone who's already tried to commit murder once. She's not going to just give up and move to another state. I know, but what am I supposed to do? Hide in my house for the rest of my life? No. But you need to be smart. First we make sure you're safe. Then we figure out how to prove what she did. The detective believes me, I think, but believing and proving are two different things. Jennifer was quiet for a moment, thinking. What do you actually know about Sophia? I mean, really know. Not just what she's told the family. That was an excellent question. She grew up in Ohio, went to college somewhere in the Midwest, met Marcus at a conference in Chicago. He was smitten immediately. That's pretty vague information for someone who's been in your family for 2 years. She was right. I realized I knew almost nothing concrete about Sophia's background, her family, her life before Marcus. Every time someone asked about her past, she'd smile and change the subject or turn the focus back to whoever was asking. I think I said slowly, it's time I did some research on my daughter-in-law. We spent the rest of the afternoon on my computer, digging into everything we could find about Sophia Morrison, née Williams. Her social media presence was minimal. A few carefully curated photos, no posts older than 3 years. Her college records were spotty. Even her employment history before meeting Marcus was thin. This is weird, Jennifer said, squinting at the screen. It's like she barely existed before she met your son. Or like she's hiding who she really is. Around 5 o'clock my phone rang. Marcus. Mom, how are you holding up? I know this whole thing must be upsetting. I'm fine, sweetheart. How is Sophia feeling? Better. The doctors say she should make a full recovery. But Mom, his voice dropped. They're asking a lot of questions about the party, about who had access to drinks, who might have wanted to hurt her. It's starting to feel like they think someone at your party deliberately poisoned my wife. I chose my words carefully. Well, the detective I spoke to seemed thorough. I'm sure they'll figure out what happened. The thing is, Marcus continued, Sophia keeps saying she feels like she's forgetting something important about that night. She remembers most of the evening, but there's a gap right before she got sick. How convenient that she couldn't remember the part where she tried to murder me. Memory loss can be a side effect of trauma, I said neutrally. I guess. Anyway, we're going to stay at her sister's place in Santa Barbara for a few days while she recovers. I just wanted you to know we won't be around. After he hung up, Jennifer looked at me with raised eyebrows. She has a sister in Santa Barbara. That's the first I've heard of any family. Me too. And isn't it interesting that she's suddenly remembering family members right when she needs an alibi location? My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at Cafe Luna tomorrow at 2 p.m. Come alone. A friend who knows the truth about Sophia. Jennifer and I stared at the message. Are you going to go? She asked. I was already reaching for my car keys. Cafe Luna was a small, trendy place in Beverly Hills that I'd never been to before. The kind of place where people conducted business over priced lattes and kale salads. I arrived 15 minutes early and chose a corner table with a view of the entrance. Feeling like I was in some kind of spy movie. At exactly 2 p.m., a woman approached my table. She was probably in her 30s, with dark hair and nervous eyes that kept darting toward the door. Mrs. Morrison. I'm Carmen Rodriguez. Thank you for meeting me. I gestured for her to sit. You said you know something about Sophia. Carmen glanced around the cafe before leaning forward. I worked with her in Chicago before she met your son. She went by a different name then. Sophie Watson. My blood chilled. Different name. She was, how do I put this delicately? She specialized in meeting wealthy men. Older men usually. Men who were lonely, recently divorced, or unhappily married. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. You're saying she's some kind of con artist? I'm saying she's very good at identifying targets and making them fall in love with her. Your son isn't the first, Mrs. Morrison. There were at least 3 others that I know of. What happened to them? Carmen's expression darkened. 2 of them died in accidents within a year of marrying her. Car crashes. The third one, well, he disappeared entirely. Police investigated for a while, but never found any evidence of wrongdoing. The cafe suddenly felt too warm. Why are you telling me this? Why now? Because I saw the news story about her being poisoned at your birthday party. Sophia doesn't get poisoned, Mrs. Morrison. She's the one who does the poisoning. I thought about the antifreeze in Sophia's system, about the convulsions on my marble floor. You think she made a mistake somehow? I think someone outsmarted her for once. Carmen met my eyes. The question is whether that someone was you. I didn't confirm or deny anything. But Carmen seemed to understand my silence. If you did switch those glasses, she said quietly. You saved your own life, but you also put yourself in tremendous danger. Sophia doesn't like losing, and she definitely doesn't like being outmaneuvered. Carmen reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. These are copies of police reports from Chicago and Denver. The men I mentioned, I kept them in case I ever needed insurance. I opened the envelope and found myself staring at newspaper clippings, police reports, and photographs. 3 different men, all wealthy, all middle-aged, all dead within months of marrying a young blonde woman who bore a striking resemblance to my daughter-in-law. This can't be legal evidence, I said, scanning the documents. It's not enough to convict her in court, but it's enough to establish a pattern. Take it to your detective friend. Let him decide how to use it. Carmen stood to leave, then paused. Mrs. Morrison, there's one more thing you should know. In Chicago, Sophia had a partner. Someone who helped her identify targets and set up the accidents. Who? An older man, distinguished, wealthy, very charming. Someone who could move in the same social circles as the targets and vouch for Sophia's character when she needed references. My mouth went dry. Do you have a name? Robert Morrison. The words hit me like a physical blow. My ex-husband. The man I've been married to for 28 years. The father of my son. That's impossible, I whispered. Is it? Think about it. How did Sophia and Marcus really meet? Who introduced them? And why would your ex-husband be so accepting of a daughter-in-law he barely knew? But I was already thinking about it, and the pieces were falling into place with horrible clarity. Robert had been enthusiastic about Marcus' engagement from the beginning, which had surprised me because he was usually critical of his son's choices. He'd insisted on paying for the wedding, had welcomed Sophia into the family with unusual warmth, and during our divorce proceedings, he'd been surprisingly accommodating about the settlement. I thought he was feeling guilty about the affairs. But what if he'd had another reason? What if he'd known that my half of the money would eventually come back to him anyway? Carmen was watching my face, reading my expressions. You're starting to see it, aren't you? This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment attempt at murder, Mrs. Morrison. This was a long-term plan. Sophia marries your son, gains access to the family, and waits for the right opportunity. When you and your husband divorced, it created the perfect setup. But Marcus, I started, your son is collateral damage. Once you're dead and the money is secured, Marcus will probably have an accident too. Or maybe just a sudden heart attack. Sophia is quite versatile with her methods. I stared at the photographs in the envelope, seeing the faces of 3 dead men who'd made the mistake of trusting the wrong woman. Why are you helping me? I asked. Carmen was quiet for a moment. Because one of those men was my brother, David Watson. He was lonely after his divorce and thought he'd found true love with a beautiful young woman named Sophie. 3 months after their wedding, his car went off a cliff in Colorado. She gathered her purse and prepared to leave. Be careful, Mrs. Morrison. And be smart. They've been planning this for 2 years. You're going to need more than luck to survive what's coming next. After she left, I sat in the cafe for another hour, staring at the evidence spread across my table. My ex-husband and my daughter-in-law were working together to murder me. My son was married to a serial killer, and he had no idea. The worst part was realizing that my entire marriage had been a lie. Robert hadn't just been cheating on me with secretaries and golf course bar staff. He'd been planning my death. I called Detective Williams from the parking lot. I have new information, I told him. And you're not going to believe it. Detective Williams studied the documents Carmen had given me, his expression growing more grim with each page. We were sitting in his office at the Beverly Hills Police Department, and the fluorescent lights were giving me a headache. This is substantial, he said finally. If even half of this is accurate, we're dealing with an organized criminal operation, not just a domestic dispute. You believe her? The police reports are real. I can verify those. And the pattern is unmistakable. He pulled out 3 photographs. 3 dead men, all wealthy, all recently divorced or widowed, all married to young blonde women who disappeared shortly after their deaths. I stared at the faces of Carmen's brother and the other victims. And you think Robert has been involved in all of this? It would explain a lot. Your ex-husband's role would be to provide legitimacy, social connections, and character references. Who's going to question a young woman's background when her father-in-law vouches for her? He's not her father-in-law. I stopped. Oh my God. You think Robert and Sophia are personally involved? Detective Williams was watching my reaction carefully. It would fit the pattern. In the other cases, the partner was always someone who could provide emotional manipulation as well as practical support. I felt sick, not just because of what this meant about the plot against my life, but because of what it revealed about my marriage. How long had Robert been planning this? Had he been involved with Sophia before she met Marcus? Or had their affair started after the wedding? Mrs. Morrison, I need to ask you something difficult. Looking back at your marriage, were there any signs that your husband might have been involved in questionable activities? I thought about all the business trips Robert had taken over the years, all the conferences and client meetings that kept him away for days at a time. I'd never questioned them because I'd trusted him completely. He traveled a lot for work, I said slowly. Always said it was for business development, meeting potential clients. What kind of business was he in? Financial consulting, investment management. He specialized in helping people who'd come into sudden wealth, lottery winners, inheritance recipients, recent divorcees. Detective Williams wrote that down with particular interest. So, he had legitimate reasons to seek out wealthy individuals who might be vulnerable or isolated. Yes, but I paused remembering something. There was something strange. A few years ago, I got a call from a woman in Phoenix. She was crying. Said Robert had helped her manage her divorce settlement, and then she'd lost everything in bad investments. She wanted to know if I knew how to reach him because he'd stopped returning her calls. What did you tell her? I gave her his office number and thought it was odd. But Robert said she was confused about the timeline, that she'd made risky investment choices against his advice. I felt nauseated. She probably wasn't confused at all, was she? Probably not. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Hey Mom. How are you feeling? Sophia's been asking about you. She feels terrible about ruining your birthday party. I showed the message to Detective Williams. What do I say to that? Act normal. Don't let them know you're suspicious. We need more evidence before we can make any arrests. I typed back. Tell her not to worry about it. I'm just glad she's okay. But inside I was furious. Sophia felt terrible. She was the one who tried to poison me and now she was playing the sympathetic victim. Detective, what happens now? Do I just wait for them to try again? We're going to set up surveillance, monitor your house, track their movements. But Mrs. Morrison, you need to understand this is going to be dangerous. If they realize we're onto them, they might accelerate their timeline. Meaning they might try a more direct approach next time. Something that looks less like an accident. A chill ran down my spine. How long do you think we have? Not long. They'll want to move quickly now that their first attempt failed. Especially if they suspect you're getting suspicious. As if on cue, my phone rang. Robert's name appeared on the screen. It's him, I told Detective Williams. Answer it. Act normal. I took a deep breath and accepted the call. Hello, Robert. Diana, I heard about what happened at your party. How terrible for poor Sophia. His voice was smooth, concerned, exactly the way it used to sound when he was lying to me about working late. Yes, it was quite frightening. I managed. I was wondering if I could take you to lunch tomorrow. I know we don't talk much anymore. But this whole situation has me thinking about family, about how important it is that we all support each other. Detective Williams was nodding vigorously, making yes gestures. That would be nice, I said. Wonderful. How about that little place in Malibu you always liked? Sunset overlooking the ocean. After I hung up, Detective Williams was already making notes. Perfect. We'll wire you for the conversation. Have units positioned nearby. This could be the break we need. You think he'll confess? I think he'll say something incriminating. Criminals always do when they think they're in control of the situation. But as I drove home that evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that Robert and Sophia were the ones in control, not us. They'd been planning this for years while I'd been obliviously living my life, trusting my husband, welcoming my daughter-in-law into the family. How many other details had I missed? How many conversations, looks, small moments that should have warned me about what was coming? I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a moment, looking at my beautiful house, the place where I'd thought I was safe, where I'd planned to spend my newfound freedom. But freedom was an illusion when people you loved were planning to kill you. My phone buzzed with another text. This time from an unknown number. Enjoyed our conversation today. Don't trust anyone. Even the police can be bought. Watch your back. See, Carmen's warning hit me like a punch to the gut. If she was right, if Robert and Sophia had connections inside law enforcement, then even Detective Williams might not be safe to trust. I was truly on my own. The restaurant Robert had chosen was one we'd visited often during our marriage, a quiet place perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific. The irony wasn't lost on me. He'd picked the spot where we'd celebrated our anniversary for the past 15 years to discuss my murder. I arrived early, wearing the wire Detective Williams had given me, trying to look relaxed despite my racing heart. The device was tiny, hidden under my blouse, but it felt like a neon sign announcing my intentions. Robert walked in precisely on time, looking distinguished in his expensive suit and silver hair. He'd always been handsome, tall, confident, the kind of man who commanded attention when he entered a room. For 28 years I'd felt lucky to be married to him. Now, I wondered how many women he'd charmed before arranging their deaths. "Diana, you look wonderful," he said, kissing my cheek like the devoted ex-husband. "How are you holding up after that terrible incident?" "It was quite a shock," I replied, settling into the booth across from him. "Poor Sophia. Who would do such a thing?" Robert's eyes sharpened slightly. The police have any leads? Detective Williams seems capable. He's been asking a lot of questions. What kind of questions? I had to be careful here. Detective Williams had coached me on how to draw information without seeming suspicious. Oh, you know who had access to drinks? Who might have had conflicts with Sophia? He even asked about our divorce. Can you believe it? As if our personal issues had anything to do with what happened to her. Robert relaxed visibly. Cops always look at family first. It's standard procedure. He asked about you specifically, actually wanted to know about your relationship with Sophia. My relationship with her? Robert's voice was casual, but I caught a flicker of something in his eyes. She's my daughter-in-law. We get along fine. That's what I told him. Though I did mention how enthusiastic you were about Marcus's engagement. Remember how quickly you welcomed her into the family? She made Marcus happy. That's all that mattered to me. But his hand tightened around his water glass, and I knew I was on the right track. It's funny, I continued. Detective Williams said the strangest thing. He wondered if Sophia might have been the intended victim at all. What if someone was trying to poison me and she got my drink by mistake? The color drained from Robert's face so quickly that I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. That's ridiculous, he said, but his voice had gone tight. Who would want to hurt you? I have been wondering about that. I mean, if someone wanted me dead, the divorce settlement would be the obvious motive, wouldn't it? 50% of our assets is worth killing for. Diana, you're being paranoid. Am I? Because when I really think about it, Robert, our divorce was surprisingly smooth. You didn't fight the settlement at all, which isn't like you. You've never given up money easily. I felt guilty about the affairs. Did you? Or did you know the money would come back to you eventually? Robert was staring at me now, no longer pretending to be relaxed. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm saying it outright. You and Sophia have been planning to kill me. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Robert's charming mask had completely slipped, and I was looking at the face of a stranger. A cold, calculating stranger who'd shared my bed for nearly 3 decades. You're delusional, he said finally. Carmen Rodriguez might disagree. That got a reaction. Robert's eyes went wide and his hand knocked over his water glass. Ice and water spread across the table, but neither of us moved to clean it up. I don't know who that is, he said. David Watson's sister. Remember David? One of your previous victims in Colorado. I've never heard of anyone named David Watson. Really? Because Carmen has photographs of you with Sophia in Chicago. She has police reports from 3 different cities. She has documented evidence of a pattern spanning multiple years. Robert was breathing hard now, his composure completely shattered. Even if any of that were true, which it isn't. You have no proof of anything. Sophia was poisoned, not you. She's the victim here. Sophia was poisoned because I switched our glasses. I saw her put something in my drink. Robert, I watched her try to murder me at my own birthday party. You're lying. The detective has the whole thing on security footage from my house. Amazing what those doorbell cameras pick up these days. That was a bluff. I didn't have cameras that showed the interior of my house. But Robert didn't know that. He leaned across the table, his voice dropping to a whisper. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Diana. This is bigger than just me and Sophia. If you think you can expose us and walk away, you're even more naive than I thought. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. Drop this investigation. Tell the police you were mistaken about what you saw. Accept that Sophia was the victim of a random poisoning and move on with your life. And if I don't, Robert's smile was colder than anything I'd ever seen. Then you won't live long enough to regret it. He stood up and threw money on the table. Enjoy your lunch, Diana. It might be your last meal. After he left, I sat in the booth for several minutes, shaking. The wire had recorded everything, but Robert's final threat made it clear that having evidence wouldn't be enough to keep me safe. I called Detective Williams from the parking lot. How much of that did you get? I asked. Every word. That was perfect, Mrs. Morrison. He essentially confessed to conspiracy to commit murder. He also threatened to kill me if I don't back off. Which is exactly why we're moving to phase 2 of our plan tonight. Phase 2? We're going to arrest Sophia and see what she tells us when she realizes her partner just threw her under the bus. People like this don't have loyalty to each other. They'll turn on anyone to save themselves. I thought about Sophia's beautiful smile, her practiced charm, the way she'd handed me my poison drink with such innocent concern. Be careful, detective. She's more dangerous than she looks. Don't worry. We know what we're dealing with. But as I drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that none of us really knew what we were dealing with. Robert had said this was bigger than just him and Sophia. What if Carmen had been right about corruption in law enforcement? What if Detective Williams himself wasn't trustworthy? For the first time since this nightmare began, I realized I might be completely alone in fighting for my life. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Mom, something weird is happening. Sophia just got a call that upset her. And now she's insisting we come home immediately. She won't tell me why. I'm worried about her. I typed back quickly. Stay where you are. Don't come home until I tell you it's safe. But I was already too late. Marcus's next text made my blood run cold. Too late. We're already in the car. Should be there in 2 hours. Sophia was coming back to finish what she'd started. I had 2 hours to prepare for what might be my final confrontation with a serial killer. The smart thing would be to leave the house, find someplace public and safe to wait for Detective Williams to make his arrest. But if I ran now, Sophia would know I was on to her, and she'd disappear before the police could catch her. Besides, I was tired of running from my own life. Instead, I spent those 2 hours setting my own traps. I hid a backup recording device in the living room, activated the security system on my phone so I could call for help with one touch, and made sure every door and window was locked. If Sophia wanted to finish the job, she'd have to work for it. When I heard Marcus' car in the driveway, I positioned myself in the kitchen with a clear view of both exits and easy access to the knife block, just in case. Marcus came through the front door calling my name with Sophia right behind him. She looked pale and nervous. Her usual composure cracked around the edges. Mom, are you okay? Marcus asked, giving me a hug. Sophia was worried about you after what happened at the party. How thoughtful of her, I said, meeting Sophia's eyes over his shoulder. I'm fine, sweetheart. Though I have to admit, the whole situation has me a bit on edge. Of course it does, Sophia said, stepping forward with that practiced sympathy. It must have been so frightening to see someone get poisoned at your own party. Terrifying, I agreed. I keep wondering who could have done such a thing and why. The police will figure it out, Marcus said confidently. Detective Williams seems sharp. Sophia's expression flickered at the mention of the detective's name. Has he learned anything new? Few things, I said carefully. He seems to think the poison was meant for someone else. Someone else? Marcus looked confused. But Sophia was the one who got sick. That's what's so puzzling. Detective Williams thinks maybe the killer made a mistake somehow. Maybe they poisoned the wrong glass. I watched Sophia's face carefully as I spoke. Her eyes had gone very still, and I could practically see her mind working, calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew. That seems unlikely, she said. I mean, how would someone mix up glasses? Well, the detective thinks maybe the intended victim was smart enough to switch drinks when they realized what was happening. The silence in the kitchen was deafening. Marcus was looking back and forth between us, clearly sensing the tension, but not understanding its source. Mom, are you saying someone was trying to poison you? It's possible, I said, never taking my eyes off Sophia. The question is, who would want to hurt me and why? Sophia's phone buzzed and she glanced at it quickly. Her face went even paler. Marcus, she said suddenly, I'm feeling dizzy again. Could you get me some water from the car? I left a bottle on the front seat. Of course. Marcus immediately headed for the door. The devoted husband rushing to help his wife. The moment he was outside, Sophia's mask dropped completely. The sweet, concerned daughter-in-law vanished, replaced by someone cold and calculating. How much do you know? She asked. Everything, I replied. Denver David Watson, your partnership with Robert, all of it. Then you know you're in serious trouble. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, you're the one who nearly died from your own poison. Not exactly the mark of a successful killer. Sophia smiled, and it was nothing like the sweet expression she wore for Marcus. This smile was sharp and predatory. That was careless of me. But don't worry, I won't make the same mistake twice. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small vial filled with clear liquid. What's that? I asked, though I already knew. Something much faster than antifreeze. You'll have a heart attack, Diana. Very sudden, very believable for a woman your age dealing with the stress of divorce and family drama. Marcus will be back any second. Marcus will find his mother collapsed in the kitchen and his wife trying desperately to perform CPR. I'll be the grieving daughter-in-law, traumatized by losing another family member so soon after my own poisoning. I backed toward the knife block, but Sophia was quicker. She grabbed a kitchen towel and soaked it with the liquid from the vial. One breath, she said. Advancing on me. That's all it takes. The police know about you, I said, trying to buy time. They're on their way here. Are they? Because Robert sent me a very interesting text a few minutes ago. Apparently, Detective Williams had a car accident this afternoon. Terrible tragedy. He was the only one investigating my case. My heart sank. Carmen had been right about corruption in the police force. You can't kill everyone who knows the truth, I said. I don't have to. I just have to kill the ones who matter. Sophia lunged forward with the soaked towel, but I was ready for her. I grabbed the largest knife from the block and slashed outward, catching her wrist. She screamed and dropped the towel, clear liquid spilling across my kitchen floor. You bitch! She snarled, clutching her bleeding wrist. That's right, I said, keeping the knife between us. This figured out your game. The front door burst open and Marcus rushed in. What the hell? He stopped short, taking in the scene. His wife bleeding and cursing, his mother holding a knife. A chemical smell filling the air. Mom, what's happening? Your wife just tried to murder me, I said calmly. Just like she murdered 3 other people before she met you. That's insane, Sophia said, switching instantly back to victim mode. Marcus, your mother attacked me. I think she's having some kind of breakdown. But Marcus was looking at the spilled liquid on the floor, at the vial that had rolled under the counter, at his wife's bleeding wrist. Sophia, he said slowly, what's in that bottle? For the first time since I'd known her, Sophia had no answer ready. That's when I heard the sirens approaching. The police cars that pulled into my driveway weren't from the Beverly Hills Department. These were FBI agents, and the lead investigator was a woman named Agent Sarah Chun, who looked like she'd seen everything and wasn't impressed by any of it. Mrs. Morrison, we understand you've been conducting your own investigation into what happened at your birthday party. I had to, I said. Detective Williams is fine. Agent Chun interrupted. The car accident was staged to make your suspects think their plan was working. He's been working with us for the past week. I felt weak with relief. So, you know about Robert and Sophia? We've been tracking this operation for 2 years. Your case was the break we needed to move in. While paramedics treated Sophia's wrist, Agent Chun explained that the FBI had been investigating a network of inheritance murderers operating across multiple states. They'd identified at least 12 victims over 5 years, all wealthy individuals who died in suspicious circumstances shortly after marrying young partners. Robert Morrison was the mastermind. She said he'd identify targets through his financial consulting business, then introduced them to women like Sophia, who specialized in long-term seduction and murder. How many women like Sophia are there? We've identified 6 so far. They call themselves inheritors, professionals who marry wealthy targets and arrange their deaths to look like accidents or natural causes. Marcus had gone completely silent during this explanation, sitting on my couch with his head in his hands. When Agent Chun finished, he looked up with eyes full of pain and disbelief. How long? He asked quietly. How long was she planning to kill my mother? According to our surveillance, the plan was in motion before she met you, Agent Chun said gently. We believe your father specifically arranged your introduction to Sophia as part of the long-term strategy. My father set me up with my own wife so she could murder my mother and eventually you. 2 dead sons can't contest inheritances or ask uncomfortable questions. Marcus made a sound like he'd been punched in the stomach. I went to sit beside him, putting my arm around my son, who'd unknowingly married a serial killer. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, I said. I know this is devastating. I loved her, he whispered. I thought she loved me. From across the room, Sophia laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound that made everyone turn to look at her. Love, she said, her sweet facade completely gone. Marcus, you were so easy to manipulate, it was almost boring. Do you have any idea how tedious it was pretending to be interested in your little hobbies, your boring friends, your pathetic attempts at romance? Sophia, stop, I said sharply. But she was on a roll now. And you, she continued, turning to me, sitting there feeling so superior because you figured out my plan. You have no idea how close you came to dying. If you hadn't gotten lucky with that glass switch, you'd be dead right now. And Marcus would be comforting me through my grief while I slowly poisoned him too. Agent Chun stepped forward. Sophia Williams, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. As they led her away in handcuffs, Sophia looked back at me one last time. This isn't over, Diana. We have people everywhere. You'll never be safe. Actually, Agent Chun said, it is over. We arrested 6 other members of your network this morning, including Robert Morrison. Your entire operation is finished. After the FBI left with their prisoner, Marcus and I sat in my living room trying to process everything that had happened. I need to know, he said finally. Did you suspect her before the party? Did you know she was dangerous? I thought about all the little moments over the past 2 years. Sophia's calculated charm, her vague answers about her past, the way she watched people like she was sizing them up. I knew something was off, I admitted, but I never imagined anything like this. I thought maybe she was just young and self-centered, not a professional killer. She said she was going to kill me too eventually, but she didn't. You're safe now, and she's going to prison for the rest of her life. Marcus was quiet for a long time, staring at his wedding ring. Finally, he pulled it off and set it on my coffee table. I don't think I'll ever trust anyone again, he said. Don't say that. What happened to us was extraordinary, not normal. Most people aren't sociopathic murderers. How do you tell the difference? How do you know who to trust? It was a question I'd been asking myself since this nightmare began. I think you trust carefully and pay attention to inconsistencies. You ask questions and listen to your instincts when something feels wrong. My instincts told me Sophia was perfect for me. Your instincts were being manipulated by a professional con artist. That's not your fault, Marcus. That's what these people do. They're experts at making you see what they want you to see. My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Chun. Robert Morrison is cooperating fully. He's given us information about victims in 8 states and is helping us locate the other women in the network. Justice is coming for all of them. I showed the message to Marcus. Your father is going to spend the rest of his life in prison, but at least he's helping prevent other families from going through what we did. Do you hate him? Marcus asked. For everything he put us through? I considered the question. Robert had been planning my death for years while pretending to love me. He'd set up his own son to marry a killer. He'd built an entire criminal enterprise around murdering innocent people for money. I hate what he did, I said finally. But mostly I feel sad for him. Imagine being so empty inside that money matters more than the people who love you. As the sun set over Malibu, Marcus and I ordered takeout and spent the evening going through photo albums, trying to identify which memories were real and which had been contaminated by Sophia's lies. It would take time to heal from this betrayal, but we would heal. We'd survived something extraordinary, and we'd done it together. For the first time in months, I felt truly safe in my own home. 3 months later, I was sitting in a federal courthouse watching Sophia Williams receive 6 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Agent Chun had been right about the scope of the operation. The final tally was 15 confirmed murders across 8 states with at least a dozen more suspicious deaths under investigation. Robert got life plus 40 years. During his sentencing, he looked directly at me and Marcus in the gallery, but neither of us looked back. Some bridges once burned should stay that way. The media had dubbed them the inheritance killers, and the story had become a cautionary tale about trusting people too quickly. I'd given several interviews about the experience, partly to help other potential victims recognize the warning signs, and partly because talking about it helped me process what had happened. How did you know to switch the glasses? A reporter from 60 Minutes had asked me. I didn't know anything for certain, I'd replied. But when you've lived as long as I have, you develop instincts about when something isn't right. The key is listening to those instincts instead of dismissing them. Marcus had moved back into my Malibu house temporarily, while he figured out his next steps. The betrayal had shattered his confidence in his own judgment, but slowly, day by day, he was rebuilding himself. I got a job offer, he told me over breakfast one morning. A consulting firm in Seattle. It would be a fresh start somewhere that doesn't have any memories of her. That sounds perfect, I said. When would you start? Next month. But Mom, I worry about leaving you alone. Sweetheart, I'm not alone. I have Jennifer. I have my book club. I have a whole life here. Besides, I can take care of myself. I proved that pretty decisively. He smiled. The first real smile I'd seen from him since the arrest. You certainly did. Remind me never to get on your bad side. Just don't try to poison me and we'll be fine. We were learning to joke about it, which felt like progress. That afternoon, I had lunch with Carmen Rodriguez, who'd flown in from Chicago for the sentencing. She'd testified about her brother's murder, and finally gotten the closure she'd been seeking for years. How are you adjusting to normal life? She asked. It's surprisingly difficult, I admitted. For months I was focused on survival, on gathering evidence, on staying one step ahead of people who wanted me dead. Now that it's over, I don't quite know what to do with myself. Have you thought about writing a book? Your story could help other people. Actually, I have been writing. Not a book exactly, but well, see for yourself. I handed her a printout of my latest project, a comprehensive guide to recognizing and avoiding inheritance predators with detailed warning signs and safety protocols. Carmen read through it carefully. This is brilliant. You should get this to every divorce attorney, estate planner, and financial advisor in the country. I've been thinking about starting a foundation, something to help other families who've been targeted by these kinds of criminals. The Diana Morrison Foundation for Inheritance Security. Something like that. Maybe we could prevent other families from going through what mine did. As we talked, I realized that surviving Sophia and Robert's murder plot hadn't just saved my life. It had given me a purpose I'd never had before. For the first time since my divorce, I felt energized about the future. When I got home that evening, I found Marcus in the kitchen making dinner, actually cooking, not just ordering takeout. Another sign of healing. How was your lunch with Carmen? He asked. Inspiring. I've decided to start a foundation to help other inheritance crime victims. That's amazing, Mom. Dad and Sophia tried to destroy us, but instead you're turning the experience into something that will help people. Feels like the right thing to do. Like maybe there was a reason I survived when their other victims didn't. Marcus was quiet while he stirred the pasta sauce. I've been thinking about that too, about why we got lucky when so many others didn't. And what conclusion did you reach? That you're tougher than you look. And I inherited at least some of that toughness from you. After dinner, we sat on the terrace watching the sunset over the Pacific. The same view where this nightmare had begun 6 months ago. But everything was different now. Do you ever regret not running when you first realized what was happening? Marcus asked. Never. Running would have meant letting them win. It would have meant living in fear for the rest of my life. Looking over my shoulder. Never knowing when they might try again. Weren't you terrified? Absolutely. But being scared and being defeated are two different things. I decided I'd rather die fighting than live hiding. You sound like a character in one of those action movies. Real life is stranger than fiction. Sweetheart, besides, your mother has hidden depths. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the waves crash against the rocks below. Tomorrow I would start making calls about the foundation. Next week Marcus would start his new job in Seattle. Next month we'd both be living completely different lives than we'd planned a year ago. But we'd be living them freely, safely, and on our own terms. As the stars came out over Malibu, I raised my wine glass in a silent toast to all the inheritance crime victims who hadn't been as lucky as I was. Their deaths wouldn't be forgotten. And if I had anything to say about it, their killers' methods would never work again. Sophia Williams might have thought she was hunting an easy target when she set her sights on my family. She'd picked the wrong woman to mess with. 1 year after my birthday party from hell, I was standing in a conference room in Washington, D.C., addressing a joint session of congressional committees about inheritance crime prevention. The Diana Morrison Foundation had grown beyond my wildest expectations, and we'd helped law enforcement identify and arrest 12 more members of similar criminal networks. The key, I told the assembled senators and representatives, is understanding that these criminals don't look like criminals. They look like charming young people who've fallen in love with wealthy older individuals. They're articulate, well-dressed, and extremely skilled at emotional manipulation. After my testimony, I was approached by Senator Patricia Walsh, who'd been following our work. Mrs. Morrison, your foundation has prevented an estimated 23 murders in the past year. How does that feel? Gratifying, I said, but also heartbreaking because it means there were 23 families out there who could have suffered what mine did. What's next for your foundation? International cooperation. These networks operate across borders, and we need to share intelligence with law enforcement in other countries. That evening, I had dinner with Agent Chun, who'd become a close friend over the past year. Any word on the other cases? I asked. 3 more convictions last month. The woman who called herself Elena in Miami got life without parole for murdering 4 men in Florida. And we finally tracked down Catherine from the Portland operation. She'd moved to London and was already targeting her next victim. How many total victims do we think there were? At least 47 confirmed murders. Probably more. Your case broke open the largest inheritance murder network in U.S. history. I thought about all those families who'd lost loved ones to these predators. At least their deaths led to justice for everyone else and to prevention for future victims. Your foundation screening protocols are being adopted by financial institutions nationwide. When I returned to Malibu the next day, I found Marcus waiting for me with exciting news. He'd gotten engaged to a wonderful woman named Sarah Chan, Agent Chen's younger sister. As it turned out, she's nothing like Sophia, he assured me. Sarah's been an FBI analyst for 8 years. She has a completely verifiable background, and Agent Chun has personally vouched for her character. Plus, I added with a smile, if she ever tries to poison me, her sister will arrest her. That too. The wedding was small and intimate, held in my backyard with the Pacific Ocean as a backdrop. As I watched Marcus exchange vows with Sarah, I was struck by how different this ceremony felt from his first wedding. There was no calculation in Sarah's eyes, no practice performance, just genuine love and happiness. During the reception, Jennifer pulled me aside. Look at you, she said. A year ago, you were hiding from a serial killer. Now, you're running a foundation, testifying before Congress, and your son is happily remarried. How do you feel? Like I finally know who I really am, I said. For 28 years of marriage, I defined myself as Robert's wife. For 2 years after that, I was the divorced woman trying to figure out what came next. But surviving Sophia and Robert's plot, that showed me what I'm actually made of. And what are you made of? Apparently tougher stuff than anyone expected, including me. As the evening wound down and the last guests departed, Marcus and Sarah thanked me for hosting their wedding. Mom, Marcus said, I know this past year has been incredibly difficult, but I want you to know what you did. The way you fought for our family, the foundation you built. Dad and Sophia tried to destroy us, but instead you turned their attack into something that saved dozens of lives. They made one crucial mistake, I said. What's that? They underestimated their target. They saw a recently divorced 58-year-old woman and thought I'd be easy prey. They had no idea I'd spent 3 decades married to a manipulative man, which taught me exactly how to recognize lies and fight back. Sarah laughed. Note to self, never mess with Diana Morrison. Smart woman. I can see why Marcus fell for you. Later that night, I stood alone on my terrace, looking out at the dark ocean. Somewhere out there, Sophia Williams was spending her first year of many in federal prison. Robert was in a different facility, probably still trying to manipulate his way into a better situation. But I was here, free and alive and stronger than I'd ever been. My phone buzzed with a text from Agent Chun. Just wanted you to know, we arrested another inheritance killer today using your foundation's protocols. A 24-year-old woman in Tampa who was planning to murder her 67-year-old husband next week. His family had been suspicious and contacted your hotline. You saved another life today. I smiled and typed back. That's what we're here for. As I headed inside to bed, I caught my reflection in the sliding glass door. The woman looking back at me was confident, purposeful, and unafraid. She'd been through hell and emerged victorious. Sophia Williams had tried to poison me at my own birthday party. But instead of ending my life, she'd given me the most important gift imaginable. The knowledge of exactly how strong I really was. And that was a gift I'd be using to protect other families for the rest of my life. Some people survive trauma. Others transform it into purpose. I'd done both, and I'd never been prouder of who I'd become. The Diana Morrison who'd been married to Robert for 28 years might have been a victim. But the Diana Morrison who'd switched those glasses and outsmarted a serial killer, she was nobody's victim. She was a warrior and she was just getting started. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters. Music.